Dalton McGuinty has left a real mess behind. The once powerful province of Ontario, now a have-not province, has been in a slow slide for years, but McGuinty's meddling made things a lot worse. His green energy plan, a trendy plan to eliminate carbon from the power mix, well, it's a disaster. Ontario now has the most expensive industrial power rates in North America, twice what customers pay in neighboring Quebec, Manitoba, Michigan. New forecast by London Economics International is predicting Ontario's wholesale power price will be jumping by more than 74% over the next decade, and that puts Ontario at a serious economic disadvantage, especially when it comes to manufacturing. I mean, what company in their right minds would pay these kinds of power prices when they don't have to by planting their companies elsewhere? It's an unproven theory, by the way, this whole global warming thing and spending money on that. Money down the rat hole. Not only that, there's disturbing evidence that the wind turbines popping up across Ontario are actually harming the health of the locals. So for more, let's turn to Parker Gallant from Wind Concerns Ontario. Parker, great to see you again.
Nice to see you, Charles.
Let's cover one base at a time here. Green isn't the only reason why the wholesale rates have gone up for power. Give us some of the other concerns on this file, because as I was saying in the intro, if Ontario doesn't find a way to trim its sails on electrical power, it doesn't have much hope of getting a lot of new heavy manufacturing, even light manufacturing, into the province. So what's going on here?
Well, there's a lot going on, and far too much, I think, has been created by the Green Energy and Economy Act. And it's, you know, the prices are going up. The prices are going up more for households than they are for the wholesale sector. And, you know, Mr. Bentley, when he was, I guess he still is the Minister of Energy until Wynne announces her new cabinet, has created or tried to create some incentives for foreign companies to invest in Canada. He launched the scheme back in summer to try to attract new industrial manufacturers to Canada by offering them cut rates. He's also recently said that if a Canadian or an existing Ontario-based manufacturer adds another shift, they can buy really cheap rates. They're going to buy rates at just a fraction of what everybody else pays. But for the small, medium-sized companies, they are suffering along with the households in terms of the electricity rates as they climb up. So
the number that jumps out in my mind is the 85 number, $85 in Ontario per kilowatt hour, when here in Manitoba, where I'm sitting right now, it's only $40. And in Michigan and Quebec, it's about the same $40. I mean, I don't know who in his right mind, as I was saying earlier, could make a decision to pay twice the power rates when power is a major part of the bill for so many companies.
Well, that's true. And we've got a real dilemma in Ontario as well, as they try to push the Ring of Fire, which is the you know, found sort of minerals up north. What are we going to do with those minerals? Simply mine them and then ship them off to Manitoba or Quebec for the refining process? Or are we going to keep them here and create some really good jobs? So, you know,
it just seems crazy, because for years, it was one. I mean, I've lived in Ontario several times, and I do recall when I was living in Ontario the first time in the late 70s. That was one of the real big deals for Bill Davis and the Conservative dynasty, always making sure that there was an Ontario advantage for manufacturing, for business. And that Ontario advantage was a much lower rate in Ontario than neighboring Michigan or New York or Quebec.
Yeah, no. It used to be that Ontario prided itself on its electricity rates, particularly for the industrial sector, but that's no longer the case. As you pointed out in your opening remarks, all of our neighbors have cheaper rates, including Michigan. So we just lost the GM Camaro production to Michigan, and one wonders whether electricity played a role in that. We lost the Extrata refinery to Quebec, and that was definitely caused by electricity rates. Extrata were very outspoken in saying that they were spending far too much on electricity, and it represented a big chunk of their manufacturing costs.
Mr. Gallant, looking over the horizon, what would any government based at Queen's Park have to do to curb the rise in rates?
Well, I think they have to shut down the Green Energy Act. It just doesn't make any sense, both from an economic perspective and from a health perspective. As you also said in your opening remarks, it causes health problems. Wind turbines produce power when we don't need it. We need to back them up with other power, so we're doubling up on every kilowatt hour we're producing. And that's, sheer madness. I mean, we're not accomplishing anything by having to pay twice for the same kilowatt.
I guess politically, there's no way that a Liberal government could admit that. There's no way that can happen. Only a conservative change could affect what you're talking about. Mr. Gallant, we'll have you back down the road. Great to see you again.
Nice to see you too.